Next slide, please. So regarding Zoom etiquette, it is always nice if you use a clear display name. It helps us moderators and also participants to identify contributors and engage in the discussion. So you can rename and use that functionality found as a setting by your name. And you see 2 examples of how it could be done. And this is a webinar, so your microphone is muted, and you can also consider your camera. In this webinar, we will use the Q&A webinar function, so you can post your questions using the Q&A icon, and we will monitor the Q&A and answer appropriately. Next slide, please. And this is the funding statement and disclaimer. The MedTechLabel project is supported by the Innovative Health Initiative joint undertaking under grant agreement number, and you see the number. The JU receives support from the European Union's Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Programme, and COCIR, EPIA Europe, Bio, MedTech Europe, and Vaccines Europe. And the material and opinion shared in the webinar reflects the presenter's view, and neither the IHIJU or the European Union, COCIR, EPIA Europe, Bio, MedTech Europe, or Vaccines Europe. And they are not liable for any use that may be made of this information contained herein. And these were the practicalities. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to this stakeholder webinar. I'm Anne Moen, professor at the University of Oslo and the MedTechLabel Scientific Coordinator. I'm leading the project in collaboration with Roger Peterson, that you will meet a little bit later. He's with Artrex as the industry lead. In this, can I have the next slide? In this webinar, we are offering you the following agenda: an introduction to the project, opportunities and challenges set ahead of us. We would like to interact with you, so we have prepared several Menti exercises, so stay tuned and contribute. And we will also share out the next steps, what's next, and how we invite you to interact with us. Can I have the next slide? So MedTechLabel is, as my colleague Lene introduced, a European-funded Innovation Health Initiative project committed to unified digital labeling for medical technology products. We have recently started and will run until end of March 2029. It's coordinated by University of Oslo, and Artrex is the industry lead. And I'm also proud to share all the logos of our partners, 20 partners from 11 countries, representing university research institutes, SMEs, standards organization, non-governmental organizations, notified bodies, MedTech Europe, and EPIA, the latter 2 as industry partners and trade associations. Can I have the next slide? So MedTechLabel will prepare and deliver a consensus-based unified digital labeling framework specification, taking advantage of the ongoing transformation and transition to digital delivery of information, and prepare the ground for a comprehensive information source about labeling of medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. In this project, we are addressing 2 key challenges: scalability and efficiency by digitalized labeling information maintained by the manufacturers, and we're also preparing for future inclusion as in the digital product passport and the EU infrastructure that's coming. Second, the other challenge is to prepare more accessible information for diverse users, curated to specific needs, uses, and levels of a user's MD-IVD knowledge, which means that a patient having or using a medical device will emphasize safety information and how the device works, as the a notified body doing a conformity assessment of the device will look for making sure that the labeling conforms to all the necessary legal and standards requirements that the health professionals, and emphasizing then information that will be useful for the health professionals or in different roles, and also harmonize and simplify how this information can be prepared to meet these goals. Can we have the next slide? Before we start to share out more information about what we aim to contribute with MedTechLabel, we would like to learn a little bit about you. So I hand it to our colleagues from Empirica, Carola and Griselda, to organize the first Menti. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Carola Schulz. We co-lead stakeholder engagement together with Cardinal Health here. And first of all, we would like to know about your background. So please go to menti.com or scan the code and put in the code you see here. First of all, where are you based? Please put in here your country or your city. Okay, so we're already spanning 2 continents within the first replies. I see Sweden, Norway, Brussels, Norway, USA is getting bigger, indicating we have several people from the US. Netherlands, Chicago, so also US, Sweden.
Exciting.
Okay, very exciting. By the way, we were very deliberate about this meeting time, which is late afternoon here in Europe, to make it more attractive for our American audience, and that seems to be paying off. Okay, we have UK, we have Denmark, Germany, Crete, Greece, Malta. Great. Okay, Finland, Italy. Okay, so we're covering in this audience already quite a good geographic spread, which is what we are aiming for. This is focus in USA, Spain, Switzerland, Belgium, Norway. Okay, let's give it a few more seconds and see if more comes. Okay, thank you. Then I think we can move on. Yeah, we have one more change. Okay, so now, what is your stakeholder group? Of course, sometimes difficult to classify, but please choose your best fit here for us to have an idea of what audience we are talking to. Manufacturers, health authorities, and procurers. Yes, more manufacturers coming in. Healthcare professionals, a big group of other forming. Patients, yes, very important for us as well. Okay. Interesting to see the other group getting bigger, meaning that for us to offer more specified options in this regard for the next one. Health authorities, procurers, patient, healthcare professionals. Yes, that's also very relevant for us.
Probably a lot of us from academia that have chosen others.
Yes, that could be the case.
Yeah, but this is good.
Okay, so it's stabilizing now. Let's wait one more second, and then I'd say then we hand it over to you, Anne, to introduce our next speaker. Okay, so the other group is getting bigger. That's an interesting takeaway for us, for our stakeholder mapping that we're intensely working on right now. We have a lot of manufacturers as well, healthcare professionals, health authorities, and right now not self-declared notified bodies and regulators here. Okay, handing over then to you, Anne, and back to the slide deck.
And thank you to the participants for interacting with us. This is really helpful, and it's encouraging that we have been able to draw an international audience in our first webinar. We have adopted the slogan "Born in Europe with Global Relevance" as a target for us. So this is encouraging. I think you can have the next slide. And I will hand it over to my partner in crime, Roger Peterson, who's the industry lead representing Artrex, to share with us what the MedTechLabel project is all about. The floor is yours, Roger.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. Again, I'm Roger Peterson with Artrex. I'm a senior manager, global labeling regulatory. Next slide. So the early introduction of this project began or had its genesis within an IHI, which is the Innovative Health Initiative. Call, and was actually call number 10, which began in January 2025. What you see on the screen is had its foundation within the indicative text of the proposal. Is the two-stage proposal that actually became the project as it is today. In essence, the streamlined and green delivery of information via a form of e-labeling, provided as an array of digital elements and topics, supporting a medical device technology product while fortifying, its safe and effective use. This has also been promulgated into our description of action, within the project. Accessing, the digital label, is achieved, for example, through a standard, printed device label, barcode being a 2D data matrix or a QR code, providing that gateway or functional link, to uniquely curated, digital, micro landing pages that would contain, in essence, a product enrichment of the, particular medical device or IVD in the hands of an end user or within the use stream, providing that information. So next slide. Some of the emerging, early use cases for the project, providing a digital intended purpose, digitally delivered translated label content, which is really huge. Not only, being able to understand a translated, let's say, a product description, but for an end user to actually transact on it, retain it within, let's say, a healthcare IT system, which further improves the current state, which is analog, where, a healthcare practitioner will simply tear off a printed label and fix that to a patient case form. Okay. And the other use case that's really relevant and actually echoes some of the content within the proposed revision of EU MDR is the digitally delivered implant card and accompanying information. Imagine, the power that, is realized in something like this, where a patient has access to everything at one source of relevance, and enabling, the information to accompany the patient wherever they are digitally. And in the digitally curated specific IFU, topic content, relevant to an MD, or IBD within context of a specific user lens. Similar, use case would be a, let's say, a or sterilization technician. They want to know how to sterilize a particular non-sterile device, and having that information curated to them as the top content relevant to what's pertinent to the use case that they are working within. A digitally delivered device image. A lot of medical devices, IVDs, are provided in white box packaging. They're unable to see inside the particular packaging. Imagine the power of being able to scan a relevant a barcode, QR code, and being able to see a device image. And then the digitally access end-to-end product life and disposal information, which would really support sustainability, the packaging waste regulation, etc. And then digitally delivered label economic operator information, typically considered much lower risk as far as what's provided on a printed label. Also enabling the implementation of the new ISO 15223-1 Amendment 1 symbology change for authorized representative in Europe. The digitally supplied compliance markings, CE conformity marking, being able to provide that digitally rather than on directly part marked on devices or through product labeling. And then also enabling an API key, digital key to, which in essence opens the door to UDAMED data lake for distinctive UDI device information of a particular device that's in the hands of an end user. Next slide, please. So like Anne mentioned, it's a consensus-based unified digital labeling framework specification, which will be one of the key outputs of the project. Providing that comprehensive information source about, medical device or IVDs, addressing the two key challenges of standardization, scalability, efficiency, and providing that digitalized labeling information, which will be maintained by manufacturers, and more accessible information for diverse users, throughout the ecosystem, curated to specific user needs and the levels of users' medical device IVD knowledge. Next slide. Okay, and some of the outcomes and impacts that are key, the scalable, again, standardized digital labeling framework, covering all medical device IVD types and classes. Our goal is to cover, the top 22, EMDN, European medical device nomenclature categories, okay? The interoperable EU legislation, EU MDR, digital product passport, packaging waste regulation and national requirements, the international acceptance of a IWA, which would be an international work agreement for future standard development, or even augmentation to existing labeling standards. Our compliance and efficiency by streamlined delivery of labeling information, packaging operations supports the whole ecosystem where product identity and labeling is provided and interacted with. The single access point, up-to-date, comprehensive, multilingual information about the MD and IVD, which I alluded to, use case, in the various, European member states, having, that multilingual information on demand, and the proved user experience with consistent, accessible, and up-to-date, comprehensive labeling solutions. Again, the premise is, born in Europe with global relevance. It, in essence, will be the gateway, to a future paradigm for the medical device and IVD industry. Next slide, please. Some of the other tasks that the consortium is working on is definitions of a label versus labeling, and with that, really has its genesis in the International Medical Device Regulators Forum principles of medical device IVD labeling. What is a label? Printed graphic information, appearing on a medical device or itself. Keying in on product identity, where labeling tends to cascade into, also the instructions, the intended purpose, instructions of use, more specifically. And this is reflected in our conformity standards, of ISO 20417, the recent publication, of this year, where the label is defined quite similarly with the IMDRF guidance. And then ISO 13485 regarding labeling, which really hones in on the fact that it also includes the instructions for use, the technical description, intended purpose, proper use of the medical device, all the safety use information, contraindications, warnings, and precautions. Okay. Next slide. So, the labeling information that's supplied with, the device, again, includes the label, the EIFU, a manual, and or, a printed IFU. Also includes, within the scope of this project, the pre-printed artwork and packaging that may contain static label content information, but also including more clinical related information, the summary of safety and clinical performance, the idea of curating, the various content based on the user lens, okay? And any other information related to identification, the technical description, intended purpose and use of a medical device in IVD, which also includes, surgical technique guides, okay? Plus additional value-added medical device information required by other non-MD specific regulations, more directive related, label or product information content. The opportunity overall is the transition to digital preparation, distribution, enabling content to be transactionally accessible throughout the ecosystem, via the user lens. Next slide. So, overall, the 36-month project is based on, a phased approach, okay, towards labeling framework, the co-creation and consensus within the consortium and our stakeholder engagement, okay? The policy recommendations to ensure the framework is adaptable across the diverse organizational contexts. And again, one of the key deliverables will be our IWA, which is the International Workshop Agreement for further agreement on, ISO, a specific ISO standard and or, augmentation to existing labeling related standards. Next slide, please. So the 36-month project is broken up into 6 key work packages. Work package 1 is the one that we're currently heavily engaged in, which is, the assessment tasks related to the structured regulation analysis with our co-leads, which is in progress, covering 6 pillars within regulation, the regulation framework being MDR, IVDR, again, PPWR, Digital Product Passport, battery regulation, the AI Act, and EHDS, which is, health data interoperability. And then another task related to the standardization analysis with our consortium co-leads, where we're analyzing the current state standards, data set model, which is being generated, covering current, quality, risk management, labeling, healthcare informatic requirements, okay? And then work package 2 is essence, further build out of the use case scenarios in development of the digital label framework. And then work package 3 hones in on, operational demonstrator that and building, the formative studies on the access to a digital framework. And in the validation within, work package 4, usability testing, cycling back to work package 3, and building the model basically for the digital framework. And in work package 5, which is, key on dissemination, stakeholder engagement, and value articulation, and work package 6, which is in essence covering our overall project plan, and communication and further dissemination of the overall project. So next slide. And then the use scenarios, there's 4 key scenarios, actually reflects within the description of action. And the manufacturers, the end-to-end implementation, of labeling, development, the framework specification, all the way to fulfillment in digital labeling, and in notified bodies and regulators, the conformity assessment procedures, how they can be enhanced with digital labeling, the health authorities and procurers, the procurement and supply chain integration, healthcare practitioners and patients, which are key to the overall success, end user access and comprehension. Next slide. And this is just a snapshot of our recent kickoff workshop, which occurred April 27th of this year, with the public and private industry consortium. And with that, I'll take it back to Anne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we had exciting and initial discussions when we kicked off end of April. For this, and thank you, Roger, for giving this introduction to what the MedTechLabel project is about. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Per Kjærsgaard Andersen. He is with one of our partners, Effort, and he will speak a little bit more on the MedTechLabel use scenarios that Roger just introduced you to.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anne, and thank you for inviting me to talk here at this meeting today on the clinical aspect of use scenarios. Next slide, please. You just saw this slide here presented by Roger, where the 4 main themes we are looking for on use scenarios are put up in a list here. And to try to learn how to develop the use scenarios in this project here, we decided to start in the bottom on the area where I do have some personal experience, namely healthcare professionals and patients. Next slide. I'm sorry for this little busy slide, but I will come with some further slides in a few minutes. But these are the examples we found out of the first 2 days where we were working hard to find different use scenarios. You can see they are more or less all of them related to patient treatment in some way. The 2 low in the box are IVDs, which I will come back with and discuss in separate. But you can take next slide. Because when you are a clinician and you enter a project like this, it is a bit strange just to know exactly what we're talking about when we say use scenarios. And we know that it should end up in something where we can find use cases. So therefore, we decided to go the other way around. We found a clinical case, and in fact, this is one of my own patients, a man of 56 years age. He has severe Parkinson, and he was unable to control his muscles, although he was well medicated. So he, in fact, was brought to Norway, where they offered him, the neurosurgeons, to install electrodes in his brain so that he could get a better muscle signal in his daily activities. Then I met this man. He needed a total hip replacement, as I'm a hip surgeon. And I have, of course, the challenge to know what to do when he has this electrodes inserted. So this is a case where we can say that the headlines here will be patients with an already implanted medical device. And there will be several of those. And here you can see in the bottom of the slide, you can see that we have thought on that there will be challenges on what is needed on the digital labeling from both manufacturers, notified body, procurers, healthcare professionals, and of course the patient himself. We can take the next slide, which is another example. This is also a storyline on a patient recovering from a cardiac event, and now he has to wear a continuous ECG and a pulse oximeter. And his vital is tracked remotely by a clinical team who intervene if there are any early medication adjustment needed. So the headline here will be remote monitoring medical devices. Although you may say you can group those two examples we already shown, but it's always a good thing to have a clinical case behind a headline. Next slide. This is more or less on the same line. This is a patient with diabetes, and he is using an automated insulin pump integrated with a continuous glucose monitor, and the device is automatically measuring blood sugar and administer insulin while he is managed dosing overrides via connected smartphone interface. Again, patient here, these use scenarios for us will be patient with multiple devices, but again, maybe we can box this in one of the total use scenarios where we say devices with patients. Next slide. And this is a little busy slide, I'm sorry, but it's coming on the IVDs, and this is a home self-testing situation where a digital pregnancy and ovulation monitor is laid up. And all of these scenarios, of course, take place at home. And they are aligned here. I will not read it for you, but they're lined up what the challenges that can be in relation to the use scenarios. Next slide. So we have shown you some of the examples we have realized until now in the use scenario 4 related to patients and healthcare professionals. And of course, we have to cover all the 4 levels, and therefore we are coming up with a timeline for what to do about this. And you can give me the next slide, where we will consult ourselves. We are at task 1.4, and we will have a discussion within the task on whether the use scenario is covered or whether it should be changed in some way. Also, we will discuss with the words package 1, and finally, of course, also with the consortium. And this will be done stepwise over 3 times. And during this process, we realized that we may develop further the use scenarios and hopefully get more and more in the 4 levels. Our intention is to have workshops running over October and potentially also September month, where all of you who are listening here are welcome to participate. And we even are thinking on having a workshop face-to-face in Brussels, where we will invite different stakeholders to openly discuss on the development of use scenarios. Finally, we are intended also, of course, to create a KPI to measure the validity of what we are doing. But the very end for us will be a Delphi process, a consensus process over 3 steps, where all of you also will be invited to join, so that we, out of the consensus process, exactly can pick up these use scenarios, which we have decided to run in the process of the full portfolio. And I think that was my last slide. So over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Per, for sharing with us our initial work on the use scenarios. There is a question in the chat, Carola, that I invite you to address on how to involve the interested stakeholders. As you can see, this is what Per has provided us with is really relevant and interesting examples of the real-world challenges that patients and healthcare professionals are up to, and where we think and work to make sure that our MedTechLabel framework specification will offer us more insights. I hope you also take the bait and see that this is an opportunity, but it is also a situation where it's much needed to engage the broader stakeholder community or inside of within MedTechLabel, but more importantly also with all of you. I think we can have the next slide. I had the next Menti interactive activity, and I hand it to you again, Carola.
Yes, thank you very much. And so while Griselda is opening the Menti, it's the same code again as last time regarding the question in the chat. So Lena is asking, how do interest stakeholders get involved? We'll get to this in a few minutes after the next session and introduce you to our amazing stakeholder forum. Okay, so but now back to the use scenarios. So you've seen the different use scenarios that Per presented. What other use scenarios would you recommend us to add? It's very important for us to make this useful for the community, for the market, etc. So this is an open text question. So please type in short text on what other use scenarios would be valuable for you to add within this use scenario building off towards our unified digital labeling framework specification. Conformity assessment components. Okay, so that relates a lot to standards. When labeling info charges, the changes are there, or is a recall, combination products, incident reporting. I like that it already opens the right range of use scenarios. Technical labeling for medical equipment connected to hospital network, patient use versus HCP use, they're written differently, yes. Any use case in which a regulatory agency is directly involved, okay. Personalization, yes, if you're seeing curated views as something, or curated displays as something very essential to us. Perhaps a message on how to add use scenarios, safety information, sustainability reporting. This is also an important factor for us here in the context of the Green Deal. Liquid biopsy, incident reporting, again, e-labeling of instrumentation, labeling used as part of EU implant registries for track and tracing, co-packaged administration devices like needles and syringes in combination products. Okay, so we have combination products again, safety information, hospital sterility technician, packaging circularity, integration with digital wallet, European health data space, and product passports. Yeah. So I think this breadth of used scenarios that you're suggesting is very, very valuable for us here to see in which direction it goes. Various notified bodies interpretations of an ISO requirement. Patient advisory group who could review the MVPs and support co-creation from the patient perspective, also important. Digital therapeutics, low-risk devices, high volume. Okay, I like how it's coming in. AI Act compliance for AI-based medical devices. New certification each time a new biomarker is found. Okay, so I see here use scenario suggestions going into different use contexts, let's say, some going into more standardization and regulatory dimension, others going regarding certain user groups or professionals groups. I think this is very, very important for us. Thank you very much. So now I see, yeah, we haven't received a new one in the last few seconds. Yeah, and we have one more, package size info and market availability. Okay, then Griselda, please move to the next question. What information will be important for you to add to the medical device or in vitro diagnostic digital label. So you've heard from Roger that it's important for us to offer curated displays of this and things that are relevant to the respective groups. So what information would be important from you to be on there on the digital label? Metadata for curation, personalization, network protocol information, handling and storage integration possibilities, okay. When the info was last reviewed and updated, okay, so this also falls into information, economic operators information, GMDN codes, a link to the instructions of use of the device, yes. The CE certified label, information that is legally required to be on invoices, especially for importers and distributors. Okay, of course, legal requirements are a big aspect for us, and they come from many different directions. This is one of them, troubleshooting, end user troubleshooting again. Instructions. Trade compliance information. Safety info. Okay, so we see already we have information going the direction of compliance in different aspects. We have information that go regarding the terminology that's required. Connectivity, origin of manufacturing, manufacturing date, method of sterilization, expiratory date, track and trace number, code for the regulation reference link to report certificate, clinical study connected, database used behind the device, safety info for the reading about medical devices and IVD, API support. Okay, so we're going into manufacturing details on the project, a lot regarding safety and user instructions, information on the software models used. Okay, which relates to the aspects that make up this project. Authentication. Supply chain of the device. Reusable, risk class, yes. Cloud where the data are saved if relevant, local registration data, end of life for device and afterlife, data encryption in transit and storage. Okay. So again, we are opening a very, very wide range of information wishes to be included, which is one of the reasons this project exists.
And it also demonstrates the vast opportunity accompanied by the complexity.
All relevant regulatory requirements. Yes, that's also one of the main work focus in this project phase. Mm-hmm. Okay, Anne, I would then hand this over to you. Would you like to keep this open a little more, or would you like to move on?
You have these 2 questions for this Menti round, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of time. We are eager to hear or to see if you have questions. Please type them in the Q&A facility. But as we're waiting for the questions from the audience, may I put you on the spot, Roger, to reflect on some of the expectations you as the industry, and that also trickle over to us as users, have on the opportunities for tackling the ever-increasing administrative burden that we have heard reported when it comes to medical device and IVD labeling practices. maybe given a couple of examples and
Sure.
how we could be helpful there. And I invite the people to continue to add comments to the Menti. So Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. The first thing that comes to mind, reducing administrative burden, I reflect first on, the strain or aspects related to PPWR, for instance, where we as an industry are forced to reduce the size of packaging overall. That's putting pressure on the printed label. The real estate basically on adding, additional information, which is always increasing, is put demand on the label itself as far as, size constraint. And, the idea of providing, lower risk attributes or label elements digitally makes sense because it relieves that pressure. It allows the label to ultimately become smaller, more useful, the printed content. And then, the segue into, providing administrative content digitally, first thing, is, economic operator information, like I alluded to during earlier in the presentation today, the authorized representative symbol, for instance, EU rep. As an industry, we are in essence in that transition now, a 5-year transition of moving that from, EEC rep to EU rep, which is burdensome from a printed construct perspective, updating labeling, package labeling, pre-printed packaging content. That's expensive. It takes time. And, we do need that entire 5 years for that transition. The idea to provide it digitally makes sense. Simply remove it from printed content and provide it digitally. It makes sense to allow space for more critical information to be, emphasized, more prominence to, critical content, and moving the less, risk information into the digital realm. And curating that specifically for who needs it makes a lot of sense. So
yeah, thank you. I think that is partly a much shorter and partly zooming in on some of the opportunity that we see in the transition towards more digital labeling, and also as we think about and consider how do we use the printed label? What are the printed key necessary labeling information, if any? And what would be the more extensive digital information? We do have a couple of questions also in terms of Q&A from the audience. Can I ask you, Victor, to upgrade Petra? There is an AI question coming, but before, as you do that, because I saw Petra Wilson on the call and she is one of our experts on that. But we have a question here on the relationship of this label specific, and I would then say the label specification to UDI. Why would all this proposed info not be stored in UDAMED with public access? I think this is a very important question. Again, can I put you on the spot, Roger? So I think that we would augment and add and look at the UDI, include the UDI in our work.
Right. Yeah. So that's the first question there is great. Actually, it was a reflection on the second stage proposal assessment by IHI, scientific advisory, in making sure that we have a some sort of connection with UDAMED, and with that, imagine in your mind's eye basically that curated view of the digital content one of the key elements being, the UDI-DI. An end user could, in essence, capacitively select that, within, context of a smart device, and being prompted, would you like, the UDI device record from UDAMED, and provide that, to the end user, and or, would you like any post-market surveillance, manufacturer's incident report, periodic safety update report, something of that nature, specifically related to that device. So that answers, the UDAMED question. And then, AI as a risk or support for this project, I envision this would be, the agents that would be engaged from an AI perspective would be predictive in nature. And with that, looking at, the array of users within the user lens, being able to curate, use AI, leverage AI to curate information specifically for users within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and that also, this question of how we see AI as a risk or support for this project, I think it's not an either or, Lars, it is more of a, how do we balance this? And that's why I also asked Victor to invite Petra Wilson to the panel and to speak to this question. I hope that's okay with you, Petra? Can you hear us?
Sorry, I was really struggling to unmute there. Yes, I can hear you, but the unmute button wasn't responding to me. However, I'm not able to see the questions, so I'm not. If you can repeat,
I can read it again. Would you
please.
see AI as a risk or support in this project? And it's raised by my friend and colleague Lars Lidskjöld, so that's why I'm also said to him it's not an either or, it's an how do we balance?
Yeah,
but
so
Petra,
fully agree. It is both a risk and a benefit, and we very much, I think, want to leverage it as a benefit, whilst being open to the risks, or open to interpreting and understanding the risks. And I think one of the things that I want to flag up is that last week the European Commission and Council finalised a piece of legislation known as the Digital Omnibus, and that within it said that in early 2027 there will be guidelines on the interaction between MDR and AI. Now, some people may already know that there are currently general guidelines that are out for consultation until the 23rd of July, but there are, if any of you have tried to look at those guidelines, they are general guidelines and they're not very applicable and understandable for our field. So I think it's great that there are going to be special guidelines. And I think we can use those in this project both as a benefit for us to help us understand, but actually also the project can be a benefit to that, because we can give very specific examples and responses to that consultation document when it comes up. It's one of those things that happens with these projects. We didn't know that was going to happen, so this is something we're going to have to do on top of. But it is, I think, something where we will be, I think, uniquely positioned to come up with some use cases and examples that other people may not have thought of yet. But within the spirit of that legislation, it will be about balancing risks and opportunity. And I'm sure and you'll agree that's what we want to do.
And actually, Lars has a follow-up question on from whose perspective. And if I may, while you take a breath, Petra, because I think we've been in projects before where we've also seen that the basis and some of the ramifications of our projects are changing as we go along. I think that we would take the perspectives from the 4 use scenarios, balancing a manufacturer, a notified body conformity assessment perspectives, the the procurer and payer healthcare system perspective, and the health professionals and patient perspective. So we'll try to balance these four aspects and look at this from these four angles. It is then, of course, also a topic that I think we can promise, right, Carola, that we will put on as a stakeholder webinar topic in the first the first part of 2027, when we know that the consultation on this piece of work is coming, and that we actually reconvene to address this topic then. And I think, yeah, I'm tempted to ask one more question, and if I may, Per, put you on the spot to actually reflect on a little bit on the balance or the different forces when we talk about harmonization of the digital labeling practices for MDs and IVDs. From your perspective, as a senior orthopedic surgeon and a heavy user of medical devices and implantables, how do you and are your community reflecting on a balance of patient safety, user needs, and simplification of the information that we would receive, as that you would give to the patient, or that you would need from your clinical practice perspective?
Thank you, Anne. Clearly, the main topic I think for most surgeons in my area as orthopedic surgeon will be any technical things which are needed with a medical device for us, and certainly also the safety aspect for the patients. There are devices that need patients to take some specific care, and that is, of course, extremely relevant for the patient to have that knowledge. Those were earlier in the implant card. Then we may discuss, of course, later on whether there still need to be something which the patient will have in his hand, because one of the use scenarios we did discuss internally was unconscious patients coming in the clinic, having specific devices in his or her body, and what safety do then the healthcare professionals have to take in such cases. So it's a good question to discuss about balancing, but I think that the one most important thing seen from the clinician is safety for our patients. It is important that we can promise our patients safe implants, and the information related to this is clearly something which has to be on the digital label also.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that we will move on in this webinar, and I hand it to you, Carola, to discuss or to share out how we can how we foresee to engage with the broader community and the different stakeholder constituencies. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So all of this that we are building here, and what Roger, Anna, and Per presented, needs to be based on community and needs to be based on value proposition and consensus, and that's why our engagement mechanisms come in. On the next slide, you see what is it built of. So we created the Forum for Digital Medical Labeling as a stakeholder engagement group designed for lasting and global impact. So our goal is to initiate a dialogue on digital medical labeling practices in one space, to have feedback from you, from your real-world experiences related to, for example, to the use scenarios that you are suggesting and what's relevant for you. And together, we find this framework specification, unified framework for digital medical labeling. And to do this within the Forum for Digital Medical Labeling, we have various mechanisms. First of all, the Digital Engagement Hub, where we will conduct focus group co-creation workshops, but also mechanisms for asynchronous feedback, where you can provide some feedback in writing for us, surveys, etc. Secondly, rapid response panels. If we have questions that need a high turnover, I will talk more about this on the next slide. And finally, we are also creating a digital label learning lounge where we will provide content for training, especially in train-the-trainer formats on how to use this framework specification. Now on the next slide, I'm getting more into how this form will work and what you will actually be doing. So you will help us to tailor the value propositions of the labeling framework to what matters for your stakeholder group. We want to articulate with you benefits of the framework specification that are specific to you. This, for example, enhanced compliance, reduced administrative burden that was mentioned before, enhanced usability and accessibility, and of course also sustainability and efficiency on the environmental part and beyond. You also want to engage you to prepare for this international workshop agreement and the standardization process that we are embarking on. And we want to establish this forum, of course, as a community, as a living community that persists beyond the project end, as a platform for exchange on labeling practices and how they transform over time. Next slide, please. Well, there might be some questions that we need fast answers to, or that we want to have some stakeholder input faster. And that's why we set up rapid response panels with the idea to have a stakeholder pool that's available for quick responses on emerging issues. So suggested format would be 1 hour meeting that we set up with a week prior notice. So quite short term, but still enough to have a chance to prepare, with open discussion and live posts, but also accompanied by a process for written input for those who can't participate, sharing some written questions and getting your input on this. Ideas of input that we might seek from you in this context of creating the framework specification would be your insights on technology advancement and practices that are evolving in this. Testimonials from your real-world application practices and challenges in this context. Reactions to regulatory changes or upcoming regulatory changes in Europe, but possibly also beyond, since we are in a very in a context where many regulations apply and need to be considered. Recommendations from you of research resources that we could contact, that we could consult, or maybe also experts that you would recommend for us to consult. So these are only examples of what we would involve here in a more dynamic and short-term manner. Next slide, please. Yes. How to get involved. So I already pasted in the chat, no, not in the chat, but in the question and answers, an answer to Lena's earlier question, the link of how you can sign up. You can sign up there for the form for digital medical labeling and or to the newsletter. Of course, we want you to sign up to both to receive our regular updates and also to be on a stakeholder base to be consulted. For more information, you can reach out to this email address. You can also scan this QR code to sign up directly on your phone. And of course, all of this participation, it's within whatever is possible for you. It's not a fixed contract with us or anything, but we need as broad as perspectives as we can get here. Okay, now we would like to hear from you on the next slide, and in the next and final Mentimeter exercise, what would be the value from you to engage in this form for digital medical labeling? So I already made it clear what we would like to have and what we imagine we can co-create together there, and to have your perspective involved in this. But please help us engage you better. What would make the form for digital medical labeling more valuable for you as a participant? Thinking of the topics we will discuss or we will reach out to you about, but also thinking of the community aspect. So we would like to know what would make this forum valuable for you to participate in, so that we can offer formats, but also topic suggestions that are interesting for you. Help probably scope the goals to ensure success. Definitely, yes. This is something that's important for us as a project that strives to consensus-based framework. Source of transparency, get an overview in the complexity. Yes, so complexity is definitely a word that describes well the scenario, the ecosystem we're in. Safe simplification of conformity assessment, clear status updates. Links to oncology decision support tool, NGS. Okay, so this is goes more in a clinical special clinical direction. Interesting. Focus on manufacturer original labeling. One location for all label and IFU worldwide without killing another tree. Yes. Structured labeling information for manufacturers. Real-world patient experience if possible. Okay, it's also important for us. Consideration for global labeling, especially for labeling to US. Yes, as we said several times, our model is born in Europe, but relevant with global relevance. So this is something that aligns very well also with our priorities for the forum, as the same as many of the other comments that we have here. It also reflects well the stakeholders we have on our radar with this, and it also expresses well that this is really a multi-stakeholder effort and can only be achieved as such. So then we have a way to get advanced information about relevant common regulation in this area. Okay. Harmonization of labeling. Yes, this is our overall goal that we are pursuing here. Okay, so we see aspects that go in the direction of conformity, aspects that go in the direction of getting an overview of this labeling landscape and evolving ecosystem, specific things for specific user groups or geographies, like we had for oncology and also for this comment here, support for smaller languages, consideration on data management and data quality. And we see a lot of comments that go in the direction of complexity versus harmonization, or complexity versus one stop shop access point.
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe we can leave this on a bit longer, and then I would hand over to you again, Anne.
Thank you, and thank you for all of the participants also for making your voice sharing what would be valuable to you. We need to process this information and structure it a little bit more, and then look at how we can use this, also incorporate this feedback as part of our of how we're addressing the emerging needs and opportunities, in order to, as just to paraphrase what I interpreted from Roger, creating the gateway to future streamlined, more standardized labeling practices in a world of more digital delivery and possible simplification. And this is also where we would like to make a contribution, and where we would like to continue to consult with our stakeholders. Should we maybe move to yeah, and I think we also got a couple of more very important inputs from a safety and user perspective that we will analyze carefully and see how we can incorporate in the work ahead of us. I think I can have the next slide. It looks like it has calmed off. Because what's next is of course also a question that we should attend to. We plan to host these stakeholder webinars regularly on 2 to 3 times each semester. We're still working on the concrete format, but so where we will have the opportunity to bring different topics to you, and where we will also appreciate your insights and your guidance. First opportunity is actually also that a MedTechLabel survey is coming soon. We are launching a questionnaire to gather real-world insights on digital labeling practices for MDs and IVDs. And these findings will directly help shape the future universal digital labeling system and the MedTechLabel framework specification that we will prepare as an international workshop agreement, and try to usher and facilitate to become either an augmented international existing standard or a new standard. So what are we looking for and who are we looking for? We are for sure looking for stakeholders. We are looking for medical device manufacturers, notified bodies, and I also think we should find a mechanism to think about a couple of other groups. This survey will open in July, and we will keep it open through mid of September. How to contribute? There are different ways. Follow us on LinkedIn. We will publish and repost the survey link and survey information there. Also, take your time to visit our MedTechLabel website, where we will also share out information about this survey. And as a proactive move from our side, we will also send the link to the survey to all of you who have opted in to receive emails from us when the survey is live. And I would also emphasize and strengthen that every response and insights, including the ones we've actually received in these Menti exercises and interactive parts, will strengthen our work and will feed into our evidence base, and we will use it to make sure that we have more robust use scenarios and exciting storylines and use cases going forward. I think we can have the next slide, because part of what's next is our next webinar. And we plan to invite in September, medio September. So stay tuned, follow us in our channels on LinkedIn, on our website, and we will also communicate via mailing lists. The topic that we would like to consult with you on in this webinar is on the evolving regulatory and legal landscape. And with just hot off the legislator's desk, the information Petra shared earlier in this webinar also tells me that this evolving regulatory and legal landscape that is shaping up in parallel with our project will be a topic that we will also address at later stage. But we do have ongoing activities right now in the project where we are looking into what we have now and taking a broad view on the MDR, the IVDR, but also expanding to look at some of the Green Deal circular economy and regulations on reuse and safe disposals, just to mention a few. We're also conducting currently a review of existing standards for MD and medical devices and IVDs related to digital labeling or to labeling practices. and we will make a first cut on those that are most important and MedTechLabel relevant. As the first cut, and that's an area where we think that this is something that we would bring to the stakeholder community and have the opportunity to further discuss, share out, learn of our shortcomings, the opportunities, where is the important value, etc. So stay tuned. In September, we will have a next webinar. I think I can have the last slide just to help you to access our website, our LinkedIn. You can also see our general contact information to the project. Feel free to reach out to us with questions, suggestions, also beyond the one we've got today, and how we can continue to interact. And I think on that note, I think we have concluded the program. Any of the panelists that would like to have a few words at the tail end?
Thank you, Anne. It's well stated. Considering where we're at in the project, and looking forward to further engagement with our stakeholders.
Mm. Yeah, then I think we will give you 10 minutes back on a nice summer day. It's getting summer, early evening, or not early afternoon, late afternoon in my part of the world. I wish those of you on other time zones still a good and productive day. Thank you all, and thank you for joining us. We will share out the recording of the webinar, the curated set of the slides, as well as attend to upcoming issues as we go forward. Thank you all.